You were like, oh, we're so limited.
And if we knew the end, we wouldn't continue on the path to get to the dream.
I don't get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live.
The book,
Yeah.
this is the stretch.
Right.
You can't grow if you don't stretch.
Yeah. All right, friends, today I have Mike Diamond in the house. I am so excited to interview him and share his story. So, Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, so Mike grew up in Australia, which we all know I had to climb in Australia. And I loved all of Australia. Tried to get my family to move there for a year. They didn't buy. So
They didn't?
No.
So you went out there, how'd you train? What'd you do?
Well, I trained in Utah. And so the nice thing is Australia is not that high. It's only 7,200 feet. So I live at 7,200 feet. So I was like, so I was acclimatized, which is beautiful. Climbed it, came home. I'm like, we should do Australia for a year. And my kids were kind of convinced about Bondi Beach, right? Because of the shows. And you had a show.
Bondi Tattoo Crew on Bondi Beach.
You're Bondi Beach, Bondi.
Yeah.
You came from Miami Inc.
That was the first show I did,
Yes.
Miami Inc.
And then you went over and produced and directed
Yeah.
and acted and all of that.
Yeah,
And-
I helped put together Miami Inc. I introduced Army to the producer, Charlie.
Okay.
And then they invited me in to do New York Inc. So
Okay.
on season 3, I ran the store. And then I was like, we should do this in Australia. So I took it to Australia and I directed, produced it, helped put it all together. And it was actually on Netflix. It did really well. It was a big show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what got you out of it?
Well, it was really interesting because I never tattooed. It was just more producing and helping and having a background really in addiction and helping people.
Yeah, you
I
got
just
pulled.
had to, I'm always pulled to be of service in that, whether I,
Yes.
whether I like it or not.
Whether you like it or not, it is your life
It's got
calling.
its claws in me.
Yes. Okay, so Mike came to the U.S. what year?
So I left Perth in 1990, end of 96. No, sorry, I left Perth in 93. I left Australia in 96.
Okay.
Yeah, with nothing.
With nothing. But you got the green card lottery.
Yeah, by complete.
Like luck of the draw. Did you apply?
Yeah, so this is what
Okay.
happened. It's a crazy story. And I always tell people doing the right thing isn't easy, doing the easy thing isn't right. So I went
Yeah.
to acting school after Perth.
Yes.
So I left the craziness of my upbringing and I was like, I'm going to do acting.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 19 when I left home.
19. And acting was your calling.
It was a complete fluke. Everything for me has not been what I've expected. I was a track star.
Okay.
Like I was a track star.
Okay.
I thought I was going to, that was what I was going to do. I was a really great runner as a kid. And there was a play. I was 11 years old, 12 years old, and there was a play. And I sat in the chorus of this play and I just mocked everyone because this was just stupid. It's a play.
Yeah.
And I was sitting near this kid making him laugh the whole time. And the track coach in we say primary school where they have elementary and middle school, it'd be like middle school. 2 of the kids got sick and she's like, the play can't happen because no one knows the parts. And he ratted me out and said, Mike knows every part. Now, I was undiagnosed dyslexic,
Right.
but I was visually photographic. If I saw it, I could just mimic it.
Okay.
So I really adored her and she's like, do you really know the parts? I said, yeah. And she's like, I'm like, yeah. So what happened was I got up and I sang the parts to nearly every song and I did the lines. And she's like, you got the lead part. And I said, okay. And what I didn't know back then was, see, I couldn't read in front of kids because I was dyslexic and they would get me up to read and I would panic, but I could perform
Okay.
because I was used to winning and I loved people. I could just do it. It was in my DNA and my cousins were into the theater. So I was like, and I got up opening night, there's 500 people. Instead of getting nervous, I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And I was like, that's it. So at 16, we didn't have the internet. I was like, I think I could do this. And there was an ad in the paper, like an advertisement for this big acting modeling agency. I caught the bus an hour and lined up with all these other kids. And they said, can you read? I said, yeah, give me the part. And he pulled me aside and he said, we're going to send you out for some auditions. I was like, okay. Took photos of me, headshots and everything. And I went for my first audition and got it. And then I was like, okay, that's my thing.
Yeah.
So what happened was I didn't have, and I call them in my book, direct mentors. I couldn't go to you for advice. I had no advice. It was like, you're a loser, you're stupid, no one wants you. Like, it was abuse.
Yeah, you internalized that from your childhood.
So then now I talk about indirect mentors. So I would indirectly look at someone else's success and go, I'm going to model that behavior. Now, obviously, I've studied NLP now and I understand what that is. But back then I was just like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? What's the process?
Right.
So it was like, go to Sydney, go to acting school. Got into acting school. Then I made a bad choice because I got sober young.
Okay.
I was getting into drugs at 12.
I know.
Yeah. But the first time
How
I
do you
got
even
drunk.
get drugs at 12?
Oh, I found them. But this is messed up. The first time I ever got drunk was 4. My grandmother and her friend got me drunk at 4 years old.
What?
And I was blamed for it. Imagine someone getting your kid drunk and you blaming your kid.
How does it even happen?
That was the abuse I had to go up through.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know
but
what I
you
mean?
got sober for a little bit by yourself at a young age.
19.
At 19.
And then what happened? Had a horrible mentor.
Okay.
And how I got my green card was really simple. He took us out one night, got us intoxicated, and took advantage of it. Practically raped her.
Oh, wow.
And the next day I sat with her and I said, I couldn't, because I was so and I was confused because he was such a predator, because it was like, be free in your body, like that whole acting thing, like,
Yeah.
it's okay. And that's why these poor girls get caught up with the photographers. And I sat with her and I said, what do you want me to do? She goes, don't say anything. So I confided in a friend and she's like, you know what to do. So I went to the dean. I said, he's got to go. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I'll leave. Say you're kicking both of us out, I'll leave. I didn't want to leave, but it was the right thing to do.
Wow.
And I'm walking down a mall in Australia called Pitt Street Mall. It's in Sydney. And there's a store called Politics Menswear. It's a menswear boutique. And I used to walk by it after I'd catch the bus and walk to acting school. And the guys would rag on me. The guy's going to be an actor. I said, I'm going to ask him for a job. So I walked into the guy. I'm part Greek and he's Greek. And I said, hey, man, I need a job. He's like, to do what? I said, I'm going to be straight with you. I need to get a job here so I can move to America. He's like, wait, you just told me you wanted to work for me to leave. I said, I'm just being straight. And you know what? And you'll understand this. To me, it's preparation meets opportunity is luck. Mm-hmm. There's no rehearsals in life.
Right.
All that matters is I'm on a podcast with you.
Yeah.
So you know what he said to me? If you can sell clothes to the next person that walks in, I'll give you a job. I swear. So a woman walked in. I went to acting school. I can act. I'm ready, always ready. It's a menswear boutique.
Yeah. I'm like,
So I was like, all right.
selling to the husband or boyfriend?
You got it.
Yes.
You got it. So what did I do? Is it your son? And she said, actually, my son. And then all I said is this, is he my size? And she said, yes. I said, give me a sec. And I looked in the window of the shop because I know that right? That's
because you don't even know the store inventory at this point.
You're good. So I looked at the window. I ran around the store and I grabbed stock that was in the window. And I said, I'll be a second. She said, what are you going to do? I said, I'll be a sec. I went in the change room and I put the outfit on.
Oh, my gosh.
And she's like, I'll take it. And I looked at him and was like, guess who's got a job?
I love this. This is how I have to buy it too. If I go into a store and it's not on a mannequin, it's not being bought.
Right.
Because I can't, my brain doesn't put it together.
But I love how your brain went, you straight away knew how to sell.
Yes.
It's a menswear boutique, and that's how we think, successful people think, right?
Right.
And so then what I did is this, that was my song and dance. So one day what happened, this lady came in, and I sold her a bunch of clothes, and she just looked at me, she goes, this is it for you? I go, what do you mean? She goes, you're going to sell clothes? I go, what do you mean? She's like, come on, what do you do? And I said, I'm going to move to America, acting, music, whatever. She's like, you should enter the green card lottery. And I was like, huh? I thought she was joking. I didn't pay any attention to her.
Yeah.
The next day, she's banging on the shop windows, right? And I thought she was going to return the clothes.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, here we go. And my friend answered it, what do you want? He's like, well, I bought Mike the green card lottery ticket. I took the ticket. I went to the American embassy. I said, look, I know I'm going to sound like a weirdo. Can you legitimately win a green card? He said, you'll never win, but send it in. 6 months later, I won a green card.
You won a green card. Like, who does that happen to?
Very rare back then. And check this out.
It's still rare.
Yeah, so imagine this. If I took the linear path and did the wrong thing and thought I would get the agent
Right.
and didn't stand up for that girl,
Right.
the universe wouldn't have blessed me with a green card.
I agree. right? The universe works for us all the
All
time.
right. We've got to get the interference.
Yes.
Get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Be kind, be loving, be compassionate, be a good person, serve others, be of purpose, right? And what does
Accept.
the universe does? There you go.
Yeah, platter. And when you don't listen, like I got into a horrific car crash because I was not listening, the message gets louder and louder and louder until you'll receive and you'll hear and you'll pivot the way you're supposed to too.
Yeah, isn't it so great how we are so egotistical?
Yes.
In the sense of,
We know it's right for ourselves.
yeah, and we want all these things that like really externally don't matter. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, how can I help you? Seriously, like if you come to me and we break everything down, like I always say to people, right? Jenn, is like, I think it's 2,650 billionaires in the world. And they have their net worth is 100 and something trillion, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just say you and I are with all the billionaires and we face our creator and it's our last day. What do we take? Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. What's it all for? People are trying to fly to the moon, but we have all these people that can't eat, are sick and suffering.
Right.
What are we accumulating? That's not God. That's not real. It's ego.
Right.
He's got out, right? How can I do the right thing every moment to help you reach your potential? That's it. Mm-hmm. And we get so caught up in
The noise.
the
noise. Okay, so you come over
Yep.
with the green card.
Yep.
I mean, like $5 in your pocket,
Like
what's-
$200.
Yeah, $200.
Yeah. I land in Miami.
Land in Miami.
No
and then
friends.
like what happens? Like what happens when you land in Miami and you know nobody?
So what I do, and this is back before I could get 1 million friends on Facebook at
Right,
the
right.
Australian in like in New York trying to make it, right? So I knew the reason I chose Miami is you always do research, and I knew it was warm.
Oh,
And New York
there.
was cold. The goal was New York, but I was like, Miami's warm. So I had like my photos and a tape, and I knocked on every agency door, and one agent said, I like you. And then I got a job in a jewelry store.
Okay.
Right? Because I had to make some money, and I would go on my lunch break to auditions, whatever they sent me, and you'd get the scripts and you'd run and ride my bike down the street. And then this guy out of nowhere, my life's always been like this, very weird. He goes, what are you doing working in this jewelry store? It's a really cool looking guy. And I said, I go to acting auditions. He goes, no, there's a nightclub down the street. I swear they see you, they'll hire you. I'm like, what? That's stupid. I'm not going to do that. So that, you know what? How much do they make? And he's like, $200 a night. I was like, I'm not dealing drugs. He's like, no. I'm like, $200 a night to stand in a nightclub. I go, what do I do? He's like, you open up a rope. I'm like, not a bartender or a busboy. He said, no. I thought he was joking. I went down in a suit and they hired me.
Okay.
I'm always good at networking and meeting people. So I meet this manager, and he loves me. He's part Egyptian. I'm Greek, Egyptian, Italian, a bunch of things. And he's like, there's a famous club from New York called Chaos. These 3 owners are coming down to take over South Beach. This is Madonna's down South Beach. It's cool, right? Mm-hmm. It's before the internet, late 90s. He's like, I swear they will love you. I'm like, what? So I show up to this meeting, undersell myself. Mm-hmm. They're like, what do you want to do? I said, honestly, I don't want to work in a nightclub. I'm going to acting auditions. And they're like, but you'll do it? I said, yeah. They're like, we'll give you a job. And I'm thinking I'm going to work the back door opening a rope. Right?
Yep.
So I show up opening night, and the main guy, Michael Alt, who I adore to this day, says, we've got to change the plans. I was like, okay, what is it? He's like, you're going to run the club, the front door. And I was like, what does that entail? He says, you're going to hold a guest list, and the security works, you're the quarterback. And he said, you let the celebrities in. He goes, you run everything. No one can go over your head. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, why? And he's like, there's something about you that I just like, and it's just your energy. And I became the cool door guy.
Oh, I love this. Yeah. Everybody wants to be the cool door guy.
I was the guy
Yes.
from nothing. And I got a sitcom called The Grapevine.
Oh, yep.
David Frankel, basically, it was like one of those things. He saw me come to the cattle call, picked me out. I got a record deal down there, a small little independent label. And then they moved to New York. They wanted to open another place in New York. So they're like, you ready to go to New York? I was like, let's do it.
Okay.
So I moved to New York with them.
And what year are we now? Like
now we're
96?
1999.
Okay.
So
oh,
96.
right before the 2000.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was working at a place called Bungalow 8, and they
Okay.
put me on Sex and the City.
Yes, I saw that in your resume.
Yeah. Which is funny because the guy that worked the door with me, Armin, one of my closest friends, I would work a shift, he would work a shift. They casted me to be the door guy on Sex and the City, and he's now on Sex and the City.
Oh, no way.
I swear, and I took a photo of it last night, and I sent it to him. He goes, only we get this. We both worked the door, and we're both on Sex and the City. It was so cool. My son's like, what's that? I'm like, don't worry about it. And then I watched the Twin Towers come down from my apartment on 13th Street, which was horrible for me because I was married at the time, and she was from Australia, and she couldn't deal with it. I imploded. I was pretty much sober before then, and drinking, cocaine, I went right out there.
Okay.
Too much stress.
Too much stress.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be in the nightclub business.
Right.
I had other opportunities.
Well, it doesn't really help with that kind of a background either.
No, it's so hard. It's like, and then from 2001 till 2006, when I got sober, April 16th, it was just bars, clubs, cocaine, TV shows, and insanity. Like, I mean, I was consuming like an 8-ball of cocaine a day and drinking a bowl of vodka, and this is what's scary. I could get up the next day and go to the gym like nothing happened. Wow. People wouldn't party with me because I would get up the next day. Like, if they're like, how does this guy not dead?
What made you get what made you get up the next day and be like, I'm going to the gym still, no matter what? Was it your way of holding on to normalcy?
I think I grew up with work hard, play hard.
Okay.
And I grew up in Australia playing rugby, and I was drinking like with adults at like 14.
Yeah.
And I grew up with crazy people. I grew up with people that were savages, that could drink all night, and then you show up to work, and it was drilled into my head. It's kind of like those old school military guys, right? They like when you hear like these stories about these guys that fight these wars, and like what they do, they drank, they smoked, they ran 100 miles with backpacks on. You're like, that's what they did? Yes. There was no like diet.
I mean, it's amazing to me how many people climb Everest and are smoking cigarettes.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, how are we smoking cigarettes?
Yeah.
We're next to an oxygen tank.
Yeah.
Like,
no, but you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I was wired that way. And then my epiphany came, and then you talk about climbing Everest. I was at the superficial height of my career where you own a bar with like the guy, Scott Weiland and Duff McKagan and Brett from Fuel. And I'm consuming so much, out of my mind. I'm freebasing, I'm drinking, and everyone's giving me the drugs. No one's telling me to stop.
Right.
And we shot the pilot, and I thought, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off. I tried to get sober for a couple of weeks, and I couldn't. And then I was like partying with Scott. And Mary, and I've spoken to his wife now, she made a call, and she was kind of done. I talk about it in my book. She's just like, I'm done. I'm going to take the kids. They had 2 kids, Lucy and Noah, who's still around, and I'm done. I'm done with this life. And I sat there, and it was like Sliding Doors, Gwyneth Paltrow movie, right? I was on the wrong path. And I know moralistically, deep down, I've got a really good sense of right and wrong. And I was cheating myself. I was being a dick. I really was. And living an ego life. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, I kind of, it's over, right? And he's like, over? I'm Scott Weiland. I do what I want. And I swear to God, I pressed pause.
Wow.
I was like, I'm done. I called a friend of mine, and who I was very lucky. I had some friends that used to come into the club that was sober, that would bring in friends and rock stars just to watch bands, but they'd to drink water. And I called him and I said, I'm done. I'm not using ever again. And he's like, wow. I'm like, I can't tell you now. I'm just done. I just know. I flew down, I walked down the street, and he said, this is what you do. You go to these meetings and you do this and you just shut up. I said, okay. I went to 3 meetings a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Wow.
Yep. I still had to be in the nightclub business. I detoxed in my house. It was miserable. I was in so much pain. I did it all myself, just laid there and just sweated it out. I said, I got myself into this. I'm getting myself out.
Did you ever want to quit? Like in the process of quitting? No, you were like,
that was it.
You knew.
I knew. That was it. I'd snorted my last night and drank my last drink. I'm like, bullshit. This is bullshit. This is all, excuse my language, it's just all bullshit.
Yeah.
And ironically, I was in Utah 10 years later at Cirque detoxing someone. And I got a message from someone. I got sober, and Scott had died in the back of his tour van at 48. Oh. And I was like,
that would have been me.
And my assistant at the time, who are in the club business, she's the yeah, I have to tell you her name, Beth Bartolini. She's this girl, never once, it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what I said. I treated her like gold, and she's like, it's Mike. He takes care of everyone, but if he's drinking and doing drugs, that's what he does. And when I got sober, I never had a cross word with her. I never had an argument with her, right? And she was one of my closest friends, and I called her to thank her just for always being there for me. And she was so upset because it was like real, See, this is what I tell people. I'm not afraid to die. I'm afraid to not live my potential.
That's a big one. I live by that. I don't get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live.
There you go.
And I'm choosing this path. I'm choosing my life. And every day, that's the power we have, is the choice of life and what we do with it.
So powerful.
Yes.
And that's why when people say to me, oh, when you intervene, you save people's lives. I go, no. When I intervene, I give people an opportunity to live their potential and live a better life and live life.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen after that. But my job is to try to love someone, show them love that they're not seeing in themselves, right? Meet them where they're at. Be so calm that they calm down, slow down their central nervous system, and say, hey, I have a better option, a better path. Try it day by day, see what happens. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And I always tell people really simply, and no one loves this, but it works. I just go, you're happy.
Right.
And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, okay, give me a chance to show you some ways to be happy.
Wow.
Simple stuff.
Right.
Right? And if I can slow you down, and we know you feel people, get around someone and you're triggered. You're like, oh my God, this person's so toxic. And they don't even realize they're triggering you with all their negative energy, and their subconscious programming is so out of whack. You're like, dude, this guy doesn't even know what he's giving me, right? And then you get around someone that's centered, and you're like, oh, cool.
Right. How long have you been in the intervention business then? Like, how long did it take you to get sober?
Well, when I got sober, I didn't mess around. It was like
done.
So it was the April 16th, it was done, 2006. I started bringing people to meetings in my first 30 days.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I didn't mess around. I just started, it was like, be of service, be committed. That's why when people say to me, like about 12 steps, that worked for me. I listened, I did the 12 steps, I do the work, right? And then I do a lot more work after that, like mindfulness, NLP, like I'm not one of these guys that and people get upset. I'm like, look, if you're going to eat 50 donuts, that's not going to help you. Don't do that. To me, it's like everything has to be in alignment.
Yeah.
Mental, physical, spiritual.
It's going to leak out some ways, right? Like you watch it with people, and if they have the addiction bug and it moves from alcohol, it moves to sugar, it moves to running, or it moves to these different things. It's the same thing with a different mask.
You just nailed it. See, the running thing, I've got to be careful. See, I overtrain.
Yeah.
And that I fell into that, right? I fell into that with my addiction. So I was 3 years sober when I worked with a guy who basically called me and said, I'm going to die. And I said, oh, I'll detox you in my house and get you sober. And that's where it just started to, it's really interesting. It's so weird. When you call, like, I don't advertise. I don't tell people what I do. They find me. That's all the universe.
Well, now with the book, do they find you a lot easier?
Yeah. But it's not like I have this click funnel, like, I'm the guy. I'll get you sober in 60 seconds. Do you know what I mean?
TikTok strategy so you can find me.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like this kind of weird pop-up and like, woo, I'm the right? Like a car salesman. And years ago when I was in Miami, for example, I was working the door at this nightclub, and this guy would come in and ask me for money at the door. He's a Navy SEAL, and he had a plaque of all his memorabilia. And one day I was just like, it was New Year's. I'd made a ton of money, and I said, look, I'll take you for breakfast, and I'll get you a hotel for the week. I got him a hotel for the week, and then he came back a couple of weeks later. It was all cracked out, and he asked me for money, and I said, let me have breakfast with you. And I sat him down for breakfast and said, look, I'm not going to judge you, but I'm not going to pay you as a crackhead. I know you're smoking crack. I said, but you always have these Navy SEAL honors, right? So I said, let's do an experiment. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I thought, you know what? I think that you could probably get sober. And I didn't have a program back then. I was sober, but I wasn't going to meetings. And I said, I will pay you to train me. I said, you're a Navy SEAL, right? He said, yeah. I said, do you still have your skills? He's like, yeah. And I said, you meet me on the beach. I'll finish work. I finish work at 5 a.m. You meet me on the beach at 6. I'll walk my dog, come meet you, and we'll train for an hour. And then I'll pay you to train me. So we get down the first day, and you'll know if someone's really got it. And let me tell you something. He could do the splits this way. He could do the splits that way.
Wow.
Yeah. And he still had it. And we started doing some hand-to-hand combat, which is like some stand-up jiu-jitsu and some, Muay Thai and that. And he was like that. And within no time, he got sober, and he was training me, and he was swimming 3 miles a day. And then he was supposed to be this crackhead on the beach, and he got sober. And I got him into a church, and then a friend called me and said, he needs to get a job. And he's like, Alan, I said, it's not the same guy. And I got him a job, and he got his life together. And I didn't know what I was doing. It was just the right thing to do. It's just like, I don't know if I did it.
You're following your intuition.
I don't know if I did it in a previous life. I don't know what it is, but I just know how to do it.
Well, and you saw him for who he was.
That was all it is.
And then I think a lot of us get stuck in our weaknesses, and then we snowball into the negative. But if you can focus on your positives, which all of us have them, and then just keep breathing life into those and reminding us of all of our greatness, it's so much easier to stay on that path.
Yeah, and it's, Jen, it's simple things. Like someone said to me the other day, and it's like, look, successful people have the ability to do the work no matter how they feel.
Right.
Unsuccessful people always look to feel good, feel right in the right time. It's now, me and you. And I said, when people say they're unmotivated, I go, that's a lie, because there's 2 motivations: avoid pain, gain pleasure.
Yep.
So in the morning when an alarm goes off, people don't understand. They're like, I'm unmotivated. No, the bed's pleasurable. Everyone laying in a bed feels good,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
Everyone does. So the day before, when you have like, I'm going to do this, you get a spike of dopamine and you get excited. You reward yourself before the reward.
Yep.
Right? So then the next morning, you're expecting to feel how you felt the day before, but that's impossible. It's a new moment and you're waking up.
Right.
So most people go, I'll get to it tomorrow. You've already lost, because there is no tomorrow, there is now.
Yep.
And you know this, a successful person, I just live in the now.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know what's going to happen when I walk out of the door after this podcast.
Right.
So I just practice empowering rituals and routines. That's it. No matter how I feel, I get up early, between 3 or 4 in the morning.
Wow.
Yep.
Good
I
for you.
stretch my body, right?
Yes.
Because I have to pull all that crap out of my body, all the trauma. You know what I mean? I do the breath work, no matter how I feel.
Do you have a favorite breath work?
What I do is I do 3 different breathing exercises.
Okay.
I do the internal nasal breathing.
Yep.
I do breath of fire.
Okay.
And then there's a real trick. So some people do Wim Hof, which I think is great.
Okay.
I like to do more nasal in through the nose, out through the mouth. But there's a really great trick you can do, and it's 2 in, 1 out when you expand your
Yes, I
diaphragm.
do that when I climb. Yes. Well, I'll do the first one heavy, second one to try to max it out, and then the last
third
one long. Yes.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Because it really is great for your breath. And I do 3 rounds of that.
Okay.
Then I sit mindfully, just very calm. And if a thought comes in, I allow it to pass, like watching traffic. And then I come back to breath. Just stay nice. And then when I journal, it's always, I do it like this. I'm hardcore. Reality check. Be grateful right second you're alive. That's it. Don't know what's going to happen today. What are my intentions? To be kind, compassionate, empathetic, and be a good person. Always set that intention in the morning.
Okay.
Okay? What's the thing? Breathe. I tell myself I'm going to breathe when I'm triggered. I write that intention down. And then I just journal my thoughts. How you feeling? I'm crabby today. It's the truth, right? My back's sore. I'm like, I don't feel like I want to be a good person. Like, I tell the truth.
Right,
I'm a psycho right now. Like, I write it down. Because if I get it, the chaos out of here and get clear.
Yes.
See, I always tell people, I could kill 1,000 people in my mind. I don't pick up the hatchet.
Right.
People like, I'm a good person. I'm like, you're about to bust someone's head open.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, I have this thing called the Grump dump. So everybody has
so
a
good.
gratitude journal, which I respect. Like I get the gratitude piece too, but if you don't get rid of the yuck, then it just like boils in you. And so I'm in the middle of like making this like available for people to buy, but it's a Grump dump. Like just write down
Brilliant.
all the grumpy, yucky, crazy feelings that you don't want anybody to know, but are real. And you get them out of you, burn them, shred them, do whatever,
Brilliant.
but at least they're not inside you anymore.
Brilliant.
They're gone.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. That's true.
is.
It's your journal. That's why I saw clearing the chaos, right?
Yes.
But this is what I always do, and I teach people this. So every time I'm frustrated, whatever the frustration is, it's because I have a desire to get something and I'm not getting what I desire, right? So I'm frustrated, whatever it is.
Right.
It's just not, things aren't going the way I had planned,
Yes.
right?
How dare they?
Right, exactly. So then what I do is I always go out and be of service. I get out of myself, right? Because there's always going to be someone. So, for example, the other day, I had this contract coming through for a speaking gig, and the guy just was gaslighting me. So I was like, a little frustrated. I was like, Mike, go out, be of service. So I just went to the grocery store. And I always know this. I always tell these people it's a great check. If you're in the grocery store and someone has 16 items in their thing and it's 15 items less and you're counting how many items they are, you need to do the Grump dump.
Yes, exactly.
You're a psycho.
That's your sign
Right,
to
that's
dump
just-
the Grump.
Right, dump the Grump, right?
Yes.
It's true. You're like, dude, just what are you doing? It's groceries, right? That's my point. So I get in line. I'm always cool in the grocery line. And there's a girl in front of me. And I'm always calm because I worked in grocery stores. I pack groceries. I know what it's like. And she's running her card and she can't pay for groceries.
No.
So she's going to walk out. I'm like, where you going? She goes, I can't pay it. I'm like, well, you're going to need groceries, right? She goes, yeah. I'm like, I'll pay for your groceries. She goes, really? I'm like, yeah, someone's got to. So she just looks at me and I swipe my card, I pay for groceries. She goes, why'd you do that? I was like, because there's good people in the world. I go, what's your name? She goes, Destiny. I said, there you go. Your destiny was for me to pay for your groceries.
Yes.
She gets a tear in her eye. I give her a hug. I said, there's good people in the world. I said, all you have to do is be good.
Yeah.
Be a good person. She said, no problem. So I walked to my car and there's a guy behind me and he's like, can I talk to you? I said, yeah, I'm really well dressed. He's like, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He's like, why'd you do that? I said, because I don't live check by check and people need to eat. Like I'm a kind person. You can be kind. It's not a bad thing. And he's like, no, it was really impressive. He goes, I was going to do it. He goes, because I thought, this poor girl, right? And he's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm a speaker, author. And I said, I've got a book in my car. So I gave him my book. He's like, this is so weird. I said, what? And he's like, I just came for a meeting. I have a credit union down the street. I said, okay. He said, we've got 200 employees. I said, okay. He goes, we literally were in the meeting going, we need to find a speaker that's compassionate to come in.
What?
Swear to God. He gives me his card. He goes, we'll buy your books.
Amazing.
And he goes, you can come and speak. And I shook his hand. I said, thank you. I gave him a hug. And he's like, I'll be in touch. I said, no problem. And I left, right? And I said, see, that's the universe.
Right.
See, if I get out of the way and I'm kind and compassionate, I do the next right thing. The universe is always going to reward me. And I'm not supposed to know the reward. I'm just supposed to know the path. And the path is going to be straight and good, right? And there's going to be distractions, of course. Mm-hmm. There's going to be the sex, the drugs, right? Mm-hmm. The fame, the fortune, all that noise is going to say, can you stay on the path?
Right.
Can you still remember the little person that needs to pay their groceries?
Right. And I like how you are emphasizing when you do something good's going to come back, but it doesn't necessarily come from the same space.
No, it never
Like
does.
I think, right? Like I think some people get lost in that, where it's like, well, I gave you, so you're going to repay me back. No. That's
No.
not how it works, friends.
No.
You do something good, and something somewhere else in your life is going to come around and replenish what you just did. And even
1,000%.
Yeah.
It's never going to go linear.
right.
There is no linear path. It's like, all right, Marcus Aurelius. Everyone talks
Yes,
about it.
yes.
Okay, the guy dies at 58, right?
Mm-hmm.
Takes over the Roman Empire at 40. Going through some stress, this guy. He's running the Roman Empire. Pretty crazy place, right?
Right.
Writes down these thoughts, right? In meditations. Dies. Someone discovers the book. He didn't publish it.
Right.
They were private thoughts of an emperor going through some real stuff, right?
Yeah.
talking about these great Stoic traditions that have been around since Socrates, and Jesus, it's all there. This is not stuff, this is stuff we're repeating. We're just repackaging it, right? But these great thinkers like Jesus, Buddha, right?
Yes.
It's great work, right? It's very simple stuff. Be kind, compassionate. Now, all these people run around and they make all these money and they reproduce their work, right? And they're like, oh, this is this and that, this and that. But these people just did the right work.
Right.
They didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. They didn't know, when Jesus, for example, was crucified, the effect he would have, right? Buddha didn't know the effect he would have. He left the palace, went through suffering, and said, there's a right way to live. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think people sometimes short circuit the adventure. The reality is well, a lot of us are still on the climb. And so if you have the obstacle, the setback, the feeling, the thought, that's okay. That doesn't mean stop. That doesn't mean give up. That doesn't mean don't do. That doesn't mean become victim. It means you're still on the path.
Yeah.
And it's getting rerouted, or you're going to get new skills to be able to go further and make it to the summit on the terms that are out of yours.
It's so you just nailed it, because this great guy said, he's like, the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next. Keep climbing.
Yeah.
And there's a great line in Along Came Polly, and I'll never forget Philip Seymour Hoth, who's no longer with us, was such a great actor, and he was a child actor in it. And Ben Stiller was playing the other character, and he was over it, and he goes, "Dude, stop it, right? Enjoy the ride. It's not the destination."
Yeah.
It's like this one clip in the movie that it's just such it's philosophy. It's like there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
There's just to be. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Just to be.
Just appreciate all of
And
it.
you know that as a climber, if you're not in the moment on the step, right, one step at a time, you'll fall off the mountain and die, whatever. And that, like you said, the Sherm went off the edge, right?
Right.
That's what it's like people go, oh, you live in LA, traffic. I was like, what do you mean? There's people going places. There's going to be traffic.
Right. Right.
What am I, the only person on the road? You know what I mean? The arrogance. Oh my God, I live it. It's like when I lived in New York and people go, it's cold. I go, it's February. I'm from Australia. I could read a weather channel. What do you mean? I'm like, it's cold. You get a jacket. There is going to be winters in life. Right? There's the seasons. We forget the seasons. We forget like.
Yeah, we're not always blooming.
You're not supposed to.
Right.
It's like if you look at 0 to 20, right? That's our spring. 20 to 40 is the summer. 40 to 60 is the fall, right? 60 to 80 is what? Winter. You're going to get older and decay from 60 to 80. But if you do the work in summer and the fall, guess what? You have a good winter.
Yes. Yep.
And that's life.
Yep.
That's just farmer. That's seasons. You've got to look at cycles. It's not always you can't always win. It doesn't work like that. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do, because if you always won, then what's the point of winning?
It's like, what I say to people, and they don't get it. I'm like, when you have a dream, and you'll get this, and you want to turn a dream into reality, it's unrealistic, right, to know the person you're going to have to become to turn that dream into reality. And where most people screw up is this. It's like if you and I were really excited to go see a movie, and someone came out and told us that from the middle to the end of the movie, we wouldn't see the movie. It's no different with a dream. We think we know the end.
Right.
But if we knew the end, we wouldn't continue on the path to get to the dream.
Exactly. And I will tell you, I had dreams of where I wanted to be. And then you start on that path and you realize like that was step one. Like there was so much more beyond that, but I couldn't see it or imagine it because I hadn't stepped into it yet. And so then all of a sudden it becomes so much bigger, better, and grander because you were like, oh, we're so limited. We're so limited.
That was step one. It's so true. You think you arrive and you're like, arrive at what?
Yeah, right.
At the beginning again.
Yes.
Right? It's so, but no one gets that.
Right.
And that's the problem with social media. That's the problem. All these people, right? I always tell people, right? It's like when I started writing, I didn't want a ghostwriter. So I'm really good at researching. So I went to the best, which was Stephen King.
Okay.
And he said he was such a bad writer at the start.
We all are.
Right.
We all are.
It's really hard, right?
Yes.
And he said, but Stephen King, 80 books later, he said he had a roommate and he would put a nail on the wall and would just keep putting the rejection slips, right? Yeah. And his roommate said, what happens when there's no more room for rejection slips? He goes, I buy a bigger nail, right? And I was like, oh. Then I said, well, what was Stephen King, what was his process, right? Because I look at process. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he said he would write 1,000 or 2,000 words a day. So all I did is I sat down, I said, okay, I self-published my first book. I want to get a book deal. I want to write 70,000 words. I researched most books between 60 and 70,000 words. That's a good sized book, self-help. I'm like, I've got to write 1,000 words a day. Mm-hmm. Then I looked at my day, 24 hours in a day, and I looked at, I have to get up a little earlier because I'm not Stephen King when it comes to writing. Mm-hmm. I might have to write 6,000 words to get 2,000 good ones, right? Mm-hmm. And I just got process.
And when if you were in the flow, would you allow yourself to write more words a day and then you had it banked for the future? Yeah. Okay. Because some people don't. No. Some people like this is the rules, we stay in the game. No, you allowed it to go once it opened.
I just knew that was the discipline.
Yeah.
So I knew if I get the baseline, there's going to be some days that I can go more and some days I'm going to struggle, but I'll get the baseline.
Yep.
So it's like that thing of Michael Phelps, never take a day off in the pool if you want to get, so for me, it's like, I'm always going to do if the baseline's 1,000 to 2,000, but then like I said, if you're lucky, you get like 5,000 some days, great. Yeah. Next day, 1,000, and then that consistency allowed me the ability, because I didn't understand, coming from an acting background, I can articulate things and tell you stories so I can grab you, right?
Right.
Now I've got to sit down and I've got to use my imagination.
And understand what's grabbing them and what's not, where you're losing them, how much detail you
add.
It's an interesting piece because it's like talking to a wall.
It's so difficult. Like you explaining how you're climbing up the mountain and how you felt and the sweat coming down your eyebrow and then the sting of the thing and then the smell of the air and you've got to explain the fragrance and the guy in front of you stinks and you feel bad and you're hot. You've got to bring me to the mountain.
Yes.
I can do that here because you can create, but then I've got to, and what people don't understand, great writing is when I started to read these great writers like Stephen King and study them is, I have to basically slow your senses down because your brain is going 1,000,000 miles an hour and I have the ability to tell a story in words and articulate it in a way that I can grab you and take you into the world, then your imagination starts running wild and you get captivated. That's skillful.
Yeah.
And that's why I love reading great writers. It's hard because we're not taught that.
Well, and when you are writing a book, you read differently.
Yeah.
You read to understand the structure and the pace and all the different pieces that, I mean, it's fun, but it's challenging.
Oh, it's so hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
I swear, me too. I'm like, I'll climb a mountain all day long before I write another book.
And I think it's because the reason it's so difficult, and this is why I hate certain things on social media, when these people get ghostwriters and they post all this stuff and it's all bullshit. And what I tell people is this, if you get around great artists or great athletes, right? You're a great athlete. You're a world record holder, Guinness World Record. Everyone wants the trophy. No one wants to train.
Right.
Okay? You get around people that are really skilled and really good. And what I do, I've laid on detox floors. I am one of the best in the business when it comes to detoxing. Not because I'm better than anyone. It's because I have the ability to suffer massive pain, right? And hold in there. That's from an abusive childhood. That's from being beaten down. That's from getting no love from either parent. Right? So I am so self-reliant on me. I know I can do it. That when I tell someone, I'll get you through the detox. I'm not going anywhere because I know what it's like to be abandoned. So when I say to someone, and then people know when they hire me, like, Mike will get them through the detox. I can't explain to you how to do it in the sense of I don't know where I go and I'm not supposed to. I just surrender. I'm like, I can't leave.
That word.
It's true.
Surrender.
Yeah.
I spent 2 months once, like, journaling that word.
It's so hard.
It's so hard. It was such a hard word. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, how is surrender your superpower? And after 2 months of just committing myself to that word, then you realize there's so much magnitude in surrender.
It's the greatest.
Unbelievable.
Because
unbelievable.
it's just because when I take a job, I go, is the right thing to do. And if I feel it's the right thing to do, I'm like, I have to surrender to the process and whatever. And that's why people have said to me, how come every intervention you do works? I said, because I have a plan and then I surrender. I throw away the plan. The plan is there to give me the structure, but then I don't know the person. And I have to surrender my ego and everything and listen to my gut and listen to my higher power and say, what does this person need to hear right now to get them to a safe place? It's so difficult. I have to get it out of my own way. I don't do the work.
You have to become a vessel where everything flows through.
Yep. And even with the work, I don't write. I allow whatever's coming through me to come through me. I get out of my own way and I sit down and I just sit. And I want to be everywhere else.
Yes,
and I
everywhere.
surrender.
Everything is a shiny penny. You're like, I think I have to go to the bathroom. I'm pretty sure I'm thirsty. I'm pretty sure I'm hungry. Like every single possible thought. I mean, it's a meditation at its finest.
It's so hard. You just sit there and you're like, I do not want to do this.
Yes, I know.
And then the best thing is because we're so wired for novelty and distractions and bullshit, right?
Yes.
That we just want to get up and you're like, that's why I teach people. I say to them, and they're like, oh, meditation. I'm like, sit down for 20 minutes. And I'm like, do nothing. I sleep really well, right? And my wife's not a really good sleeper. And she goes, how do you sleep well? I go, because I don't have to do anything. She goes, what do you mean? I'm like, it's the only time I just lay there. I go, I just surrendering to the bed.
I'm receiving.
Yes,
I'm receiving.
Right? Because all day I'm running around.
Yes.
Like a squirrel.
Yes.
Chasing the nut. And like bed, I'm like, I'm out.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So how long did it take you to write the book?
So this is a crazy story. You'll love this. So I always tell people there's 3 things that people will make. People will say, I don't have time, I don't have money, and don't have resources.
Yep.
I'm like, chunk down your day, 24 hours a day. Be resourceful, okay? Resourceful. I wrote the book, the first draft, off my phone. I'll tell you how I did it. So
like fat finger texting on your phone?
You'll love this. This is what I did. So I went to a friend of mine and I said to her, what do I need to do? My wife's having a baby. And she's like, do you want me to be honest? I said, yeah. And she's like, get up really early. This is what triggered the 4 a.m. stuff. Get up really early and get the baby in the morning. Let her sleep 4 hours. I'm like, okay. So I started getting up at 3 a.m. Now, here's the crazy story. I'll go into 2 stories to make you laugh. So I started to get up at 3 a.m. and what I would do is run with the baby in the stroller and I would get ideas. And I always learned that when you have an idea, you've got to get it down. Because
right.
So I opened up a notes on my phone and I would start typing the ideas. Right? Just start typing them into the notes. And then what I would do is I got a Word document on my phone and I would send them put them in a Word document and email them to myself because I know I work off my iPhone and my iPad, so I know they're connected. So every day, what I would do is I would write I would stop and get some ideas and start charting down some ideas, send them to myself. Then I would go home and I would start flushing through the ideas and get the 1,000 words in and type away. And I got into this routine, go run 10, 12 miles with the baby, feed him in the stroller, write down a bunch of ideas, and then stretch the ideas. So the first draft, I wrote 66,000 words, 70,000 words in like 8 weeks.
Wow.
It came that quick.
Wow.
But then I got this really good editor.
Okay.
And he was a savage. And he went line by line. And I literally, all I saw was red ink when I got the first thing. And I was just like, I did track changes and I was like, oh my God, I'm a retard. Like, excuse me the word, but it's like, oh my God, I'm back. Dyslexia, getting kicked out of high school.
Right. Trigger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Learning disabilities, know, and then I went through it and meticulously got out of my own way. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And I sat there and took a beating. And got the second draft done.
When I did my intro, my intro was 2 pages. Yeah. I got 12 pages of feedback back. And I'm like, how do we have 12 pages of feedback for 2 pages of writing? Like, I don't even understand how this equates. We're going to get nowhere.
The best thing you just said, I love that. I remember, it's so true. It's like, wait, I didn't even write that much.
I know.
I remember doing that, but the good thing is I learned that on a TV show. I remember doing it at TV. We did an episode. And we thought it was good. And we literally got 200 notes. And I was like, how are we going to get this episode in? And when we finished the episode, And I said to a friend of mine, is this normal? He goes, yeah. He goes, this is TV. And then, so I was used to like, hey, if I want a publisher to give me an advance and I want to get published and I want to be in bookstores, I've got to be of service. I got to sit down and shut up. And it's such a great lesson, but I wrote it off my phone, the first draft.
That's
I do
amazing.
everything, my notes. If I get them, I just write them down and send them to myself.
That's perfect.
And just that's how I write. If
Yeah.
I get an idea and I stretch a word, and I learned it from. There's a really important thing that people, and I did a clip of it. So no one taught me. I wasn't taught well as a kid, and that's why I really work hard to help people. And I wasn't mentored well. And Al Pacino was one of my favorite actors, and I saw this great clip of him recently, and he said that he landed Richard III, and he didn't understand the part, and he got the part, and he was in rehearsals, and he would trick everyone because they thought he just wanted to be more professional and rehearse more, but he just didn't understand the part. And he would bring them in for extra rehearsals. They're like, he's such a professional, but he was just didn't know what he was doing, right? And he said, it was so beautiful. He said it was 85 performances into a scene of Richard III, a dinner scene. He said, I sat there in the scene. He goes, oh, I finally get the character. And I try to explain to people that is process.
Yeah.
You've just seen, and Russell Crowe did it beautifully when he talks about Gladiator, right? So he gets Gladiator, he's with Ridley Scott, they're on the set, and he turns to Ridley, and Ridley goes, what do you think? And he's like, I don't want to lie to him. He goes, the script is shit. He goes, yeah. And they reread it together, and they agreed there was 20 good pages. So he said, I sat with Ridley, and he goes, I wanted to fly home. And that's what I thought. See, most people will fly home, and they'll blame the script, and they'll blame the agent, right? And he said, like Al, he's like, stayed in process. They shot 20 days. They went line by line, and he won an Oscar. And that's what people don't teach you, and that's why social media is a lie, because people put up these clips of these beautiful lives they have, but really, it's all bullshit. That's not how it works.
Right.
It's doing 85 performances and finally getting it. It's getting on set and going, this is crap. We've got to figure this out in the moment, right? It's me laying on a gurney. I find out I'm having a baby boy. It's June 14th, my birthday, and I get rushed to the hospital because my appendix burst. And 3 days before, they really burst, but I thought it was colitis pain. And it's sitting, looking at my wife, and she's like, he's in septic shock for 3 days. He may not make it out. He's a 50-50. And she's like, you're going to die. I'll go, I'm going to leave you with probably my son and a bull terrier at the time. I had a dog. And she's like, how could you say that? I said, it's bigger than me. I don't know. I said, but it's going to change my life. And I just surrendered. And I woke up 9 days in the hospital, 7.5 inches off my intestines. They told me I'd never really run or do much again. Lost 50 pounds. And I'm like, I got to heal myself because I can't take opiates.
Right.
They gave me all these opiates. I'm a drug addict.
Yeah.
Right? I go, I can't do that. And I literally sat by myself. I'm like, okay. Now, crazy thing is, the baby came 7 weeks early.
Wow.
I started running. I watched a woman, Ann Treason, run 100 miles. I was like, how do you do that? It's like you climbing Everest. I'm like, huh? I pushed the baby for 1 half marathon. And then a year later, ran 30 half marathons in 30 days.
Amazing.
And if I didn't go through the stomach surgery, I wouldn't have known my potential.
Exactly.
Right?
Right. Oh, 1,000%.
So when I get the book,
Yeah.
this is a stretch.
Right.
You can't grow if you don't stretch.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's horrible.
And then you share it with the world, right? Like, I mean, this is the real sharing. And then you're like, yes, it's a thing.
Like, this guy's a psycho.
Yeah,
what is he
no,
doing?
We all are. We're all psycho.
But you've got to lean into it.
Yeah, and I think where you like shine is the fact that you understand that you're here to serve.
That's it.
And that's where everything comes from for you. And I think
Everything's
when
service.
we come from that space, whatever we create is magic.
Yeah, because before it was all serving me.
Right.
And it didn't work.
Right.
And it was superficial, and it was all, look, I tell people straight away, and no one wants to agree with this. I'm like, look, if I could get away with snorting cocaine, smoking crack, and sitting on the couch, I would. There's a reason. I snorted cocaine once, and I took the cocaine, and the cocaine took me.
Yeah.
I tell people, you don't want to mess with that. It's not feel good for a second, ruin your life. Like cocaine is like fentanyl. That's why people don't get it. See, the Sackler family are the most evil family in the world. Do you know why? Avoid pain, gain pleasure, human motivation. OxyContin helps you avoid pain, gain pleasure in one pill.
Yeah.
And they lied. They said it was, it's okay.
Yes,
You'll be okay.
You won't be addicted.
You won't be addicted.
Who wouldn't be addicted
Look,
to that?
right.
I'm addicted to that
Come
feeling.
on.
Like we chase it all the time.
Yeah. And in one motivation. So I tell people for the second, right, of the altering the mood of the cocaine or whatever the drug is, right? The disempowering choice, like I talk about in dose, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. Empowering or disempowering. What's the long-term consequences? That's all I do now. I just run the tape. I'm feeling off. Well, why am I feeling off? Right? Why am I feeling moody? The grump dump, right?
Yes.
Speak to someone.
Right.
Talk about your problems. But that's where the world is messed up right now, is because people, see, I can sit here and tell someone, and you can tell someone, if you want to climb out, if I'm gonna climb Mount Everest, I'm coming to you. Right? I am not going to like what you tell me.
Nope.
Because you are going to break my balls.
It's an uphill climb.
Right.
It's intentional, and every step
is
required.
right, and you're going to break me.
Yep.
Because I'm going to have to break certain habits, right, which people don't want to do to be that successful. But I'm not going to go to a person as successful as you, that's a world record holder, climbing Mount Everest and question you.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
I'm going to ask, but I'm not going to question. So why did you do it that way, right? And how did you do it that way? Then I'm going to sit with myself, right? And this was the best revelation I had the other day. I was up at 4 a.m, and I was stretching my body, right? And, I was in so much pain, like just waking up, right? And I got colitis, whatever. And I'm sitting there in the dark, and it's 4 a.m, and I'm stretching my body, and I started laughing to myself. And the reason I was laughing to myself, I said, okay, if I had the greatest track coach, if I had $1 billion in the bank, if I had the best upbringing in the world, if I had all these things, guess what? I'm alone in the dark stretching. Yes. And if I'm not prepared to stretch myself alone in the dark, it doesn't matter what people tell me, how much influence they have or not. I've got to do the work in the dark to shine in the bright lights. Right?
Exactly.
And people don't want to hear that.
Right. We all want the easy way out.
Everyone wants to climb Mount Everest, but no one wants to climb.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's why people get on Instagram and these social media fields, and they get depressed, and kids kill themselves because what they don't understand is that's not real. It's not how it works. You make a mess. You do not go. You go to an art gallery, right? And what you see is the end product, right? You don't see the mess, the trail to get you to the magic.
Right.
People don't. I post the trail. I post the mess. When I was doing the half marathons, I told people I got colitis. I wore a diaper some days. I couldn't hold my stomach. And people I'm not ashamed of it. Right. And then I did a talk one day, and this girl pulled me aside, and she was crying. She goes, I've got colitis. I live in shame. She goes, I don't live in shame anymore. She goes, I see a guy like you, but true, with like tattoos, cool. And she goes, I'm thinking, she goes, I would have thought that. I said, that's why I'm truthful. That's why I'm vulnerable. I make so many mistakes. I live in failure.
Yeah.
I'm always failing.
Yeah. No. I think the best thing that happened to me was that I graduated from college. I took a job in finance, which meant I was a fancy cold caller, just had a cooler name. Okay. And when I took this job, I realized that 97 no's meant 3 people would book an appointment and 1 person would show and become a client. And I think that applies to our lives in so many ways. It is 97 no's. For the 3 people, 2 are going to stand you up, 1's going to show. But the one that shows is the one that you needed. But you needed the 2 that didn't show and the 97 no's. And so the more you can embrace this is just one of my no's, the more you're going to be able to experience and enjoy life to its fullest because you're not going to stop.
It's so good. It's like every person I know that's successful just knows. Like I told people the other day, I go, belief is good because you have hope. Knowing means you have faith.
Yeah. I like
you got to know in your DNA. And General Stockdale talks about it. He was in a prisoner of war camp. And he said, what happened to the people? You must have been optimistic. He said, no. All the people that said, we're going to get out by Christmas, died. Yes. He said, I just knew I had faith I could get through the day. Yep. And he lasted 8 years in a prisoner of war camp.
Yeah.
Okay. And the trick is I get up and I know if I listen to my intuition and I'm of service and I'm kind and compassionate and I have faith, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get through the day. And I'm that disciplined in just controlling my sympathetic nervous system when I'm triggered. Breathe.
Yes.
I just tell myself, breathe.
Breathe.
Don't react.
Yeah. Well, I got in a car accident. And when the car accident happened, it was going so fast that I had to slow down. So I closed my eyes at the end and I wiggled my fingers and toes.
Wow.
And now whenever I get stuck, I'll close my eyes and I'll just wiggle my fingers and toes because it'll take me out of the noise in my brain and connect me back to my body. I'm like, oh, guess what? I can feel my fingers and toes. Anything else is a story. Anything else is something that's running that isn't truth. I can feel my fingers and toes. This is truth.
Amazing.
Yeah, the
But
little
that-
things make the biggest difference. It does. It does.
Go.
Okay, no. So we have the book.
Yeah.
And how do people follow? How do they support? How do they work with you? All these magic things because you're an amazing human.
I try to be.
You are.
Every day.
I love it.
Try to bring some love in the world, right?
Yes.
So you can buy the book at bookstores, Barnes and Nobles. Obviously at Amazon.
Yes.
Everything's Amazon.
Everybody's Amazon.
And then the TV show Intervention.
Yes.
I'm on Intervention, and that will air later this year. It's in December, depending on when this airs. I don't know. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I'm on the show When They Call Me, which is it'll be regular. And yeah, they can follow me at @the_Mike_Diamond
Okay.
on Instagram, and my @the_Mike_Diamond at Yahoo is my email.
Okay.
And if anyone really I do check my messages. And if someone is sick and suffering or they're confused, if you email me or send me a message, I'll check it and read it. And if I can't personally help you, I always find people resources or service or something that can, help them. But don't suffer in silence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There is people that care, and life's too short to live in a miserable, you don't have to be miserable. It's not easy. It's work. I'm not saying it. It's like there's temptations
There's no super
everywhere.
pill.
No,
I mean, you got to do the work.
No.
But
There is no shortcut or super pill. There's no like when people say, "Oh, there's the," it's so funny. I remember going to a meeting and I was probably 30 days sober, and I was in New York, and this lady said, "If I could give you the gift of sobriety, I wouldn't." And instantly I had a resentment, right? I was like, I hate this woman. And she goes, and I was resenting her in the first sentence. And then she goes in the second sentence, because I wouldn't rob you of your personal journey to surrender.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I love that woman.
Yes.
And afterwards I was like, I resented you. She goes, why? And I said, when you said the first sentence. And then I said, I fell in love with you on the second. And she's like, you're so honest. I was like, it's true. I was like, why don't you give me the gift? I want the gift. Why wouldn't you give me the gift?
We don't want the gift.
Yeah, give me the gift. I want it in a shiny box. I want the pill. And she goes, you have to surrender, sweetheart. I was like, ugh.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing. All right, listeners, Mike Diamond. You want to shine bright like a diamond? Here's your guy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.